Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'll be talking about The Guest, the second novel written by Emma Cline. So this is a pretty recent release. It just came out in May. I think if you look back on my channel, I kind of get to books in my own time and don't usually talk about new releases because I haven't read them yet. But there was just so much buzz about this book. I talk a lot in my videos about how I get a lot of book recommendations from Brandon Taylor's Twitter. And he did tweet about this book, but so did everyone else. Like every writer I follow online was talking about this. And then I saw it in my local bookstore here in Boston, and the cover's really good. It really drew me in, which I think is definitely notable because American book covers have not been very good for a few years. I think they're kind of all starting to look the same, this rainbow blob thing that's happening, to the point where there's a couple books that I'm like, do I need to figure out how to get the UK edition of this one? It's like they're trying to trick readers into accidentally buying the wrong rainbow blob book or something. I don't know, but a lot of books are starting to look the same. But this cover is definitely giving me hope that we're stepping outside of that a little bit. So this book is about a young woman named Alex, who is a sex worker from the city. The city is implied to be New York City. And while it takes some time to reveal everything, there's certainly something she's running away from. She's got some danger and trauma in her past. And where she runs to is this wealthy beach community that appears to be the Hamptons, where she is summering with her older, wealthy boyfriend, Simon. And Alex is basically just this character who has a lot of secrets. You know, Simon doesn't know that she is a sex worker. No one that she's interacting with knows anything true about her, really. And even as the reader, we know very little about Alex's life before this book. She's sort of embodied this new person so deeply. So that's kind of what the book is about, is her trying to blend in enough with this higher social class to become a part of it. But often self-destructive behavior comes in and the mask that she's putting on slips. That's kind of where we start at the beginning. Her mask slips. Simon sees something kind of unsavory in her, I guess, and he asks her to leave before the end of the summer. But Alex is trying to latch on to Simon forever. She's trying to be the exception to his usual pattern of dating and dropping these younger women. So the book follows the course of about a week in between the time where Simon asks her to leave and his end of summer Labor Day party where she's planning to get him back. And in the meantime, she's just conning her way into different people's houses, one night at a time, just trying to survive in the Hamptons unnoticed. So that's something that's interesting about this book. It feels very real time. We're very tight on this week, and we kind of see everything that happens to Alex in that time, every thought she has, and the only kind of skips are when she's asleep or, doesn't remember what's happening because she's drinking and using drugs, some in this book. So it's really putting us in this survival mindset that Alex has, where she's just trying to make it to the next moment. She can't even hold in her head, it seems, the long-term consequences of things, that she can't even think of that. Because I think if she does, she might see the hopelessness of her situation. So she's just trying to make it hour by hour, just trying to make the time pass and get through these painful moments until Labor Day. which is in real contrast to this wealthy class that she's surrounded by that certainly aren't thinking about their survival. And as she goes, there's this cloud over her, which is this guy named Dom who is back in the city, and she's wronged him in some way. He's trying to find her, and she is afraid of him. And Simon kind of seems like her ticket out of whatever has happened in that situation. So there's this implication throughout the book that Alex is usually very good at reading and manipulating people and kind of flying, you know, under the radar. Like, lying is completely second nature to her. So, you know, she should be good at what she's trying to do, this hiding in plain sight thing in the Hamptons. But over and over again, it comes up that she's off her game. She's unsettled for some reason. She's making all the wrong moves. And there's just mistake after mistake. And over the course of the book, you're really seeing Alex unravel and get more and more exposed. And the more obvious it becomes how exposed she is, the more kind of delusional she becomes that somehow it'll all just fix itself if she can just survive to the next moment. And she thinks that she'll be able to outrun these mistakes. She'll be able to outsmart it in the end. So as a result, the book is really anxiety inducing. You really feel kind of stressed while you're reading this. It's an interesting experience because you're just, every moment she's kind of on the verge of being caught in a lie or called out, and sometimes she is, and it's just really nerve-wracking. Like when there's like a moment of safety, you can't trust it because she always kind of finds the bad idea and gets herself into trouble again. So much of this book is about, you know, the insiders versus the outsiders, and the way Alex is kind of an intruder across this very strict class line. So there are all of these, you know, extremely wealthy people who maybe work in the city and summer in the Hamptons, and then there's their staff and the locals. And, you know, those are the people more aligned with Alex's experience. So the question becomes, can Alex make that jump? Can she start as an outsider and become an insider? Like, is she a good enough liar or actress, performer to pull this off to get Simon to think she's different, she should be kept around? And ultimately, I think the answer is no. The line is too clearly drawn, and it just seems like every connection she makes falls apart. And like, can she lie and hide her true feelings to that degree? Because she's often kind of disgusted by these people. We see these moments of waste or unhappiness that she can't help but observe from the perspective of an outsider. And something else that reoccurs in multiple situations throughout this novel is that the working class, the outsider people, they recognize Alex. Like, they can spot that she's an intruder, she's a fraud. They see she's one of us, you know? She can't fool them in the way that she fools the wealthy people who perhaps don't have any life experience to make them suspicious of people. And Alex is so used to being this performer and kind of having this mask and kind of pulling the wool over everyone's eyes, that she's really deeply unsettled when these people see her and understand her. But they know that she is a pretender because they're pretenders too. Pretending is how they all survive because they're in these service roles. You know, Alex is in a service role. And we see lots of other characters who are in different kinds of pretending roles. Basically, every night she's coming in contact with a different subset of the Hamptons people. And one really important example of this, I think, is the character Nicholas, who is a house manager for another wealthy person. And he feels important because Alex acknowledges that he's as good as her at pretending, at playing this game. So I'll read a little description of Nicholas. It was Nicholas's job, of course, to be this agreeable. It was even part of his job to look like one of them and not like an employee, to dress like someone's nice son-in-law who just happened to anticipate your every need and tend to it discreetly. Maybe the lack of uniform made people more comfortable with the idea of another person being so deeply embedded in their life, as if Nicholas hung around just because he liked it, just because he enjoyed their company. So Nicholas is like exaggeratedly helpful and accommodating and blends into the family because it's kind of unsavory that he's being paid to be there. He has to create this illusion of he's just so happy to be doing this job. And he doesn't let his guard down. I think in the end we see that he's actually a lot better at this than Alex is. But we see these two characters really connecting on this level. And then, of course, Alex makes a big mistake in the night that she spends with Nicholas. And when he turns and shows that he knows what she is, he knows who she is, his honesty is just brutal. It's so cutting, and I think it's a real tipping point in Alex's confidence that she can pull this off. I think she really starts spiraling much faster after that. Just how long can she really run from herself? That's something else we see a lot from Alex, is that she's running from her feelings. It's a really compelling part of being inside of her head in this kind of real-time, moment-to-moment way, is seeing her have a strong emotion and like turn it off. She has this way of disassociating, which, you know, obviously is a survival tactic. Like, she'll have this feeling, you know, often it's fear, she'll be afraid, and she'll kind of go in her mind and skip to the end of it. Like, imagine when she's looking back on the fear, and then she just kind of skips right over it. And that's kind of connected to this living moment by moment, because she's assuming that the things she's afraid of aren't actually going to catch up to her, that somehow eventually all of this will pass if she can just make it until that point. This is established as part of Alex's character from the very first moments of the book. She's swimming in the ocean and she kind of gets taken out a little bit too far by a rip current. And she has this moment where she's like, I might not be able to swim back and nobody would even notice. I might die out here. But she kind of puts that fear to the side, you know, does what she needs to do and makes it back to the shore. And that's kind of central to Alex, that she puts these momentary discomforts to the side and assumes she'll always make it back to the shore. But like, will she? Especially if her ultimate shore is Simon. And that kind of connects to this interesting part. It was intolerable in a way, unbearable. But then it had been tolerable, hadn't it? Because here she was. A familiar feeling, a dim feeling she could conjure too easily. The time she knew with certainty that she did not exist. So it's like she's this ghost and all of her feelings sort of add up to nothing. So does it even matter? And all of these terrible things have happened, but she's survived, hasn't she? But this idea that she's a ghost kind of falls apart because she keeps bumping into the world, you know? She isn't a ghost that's flitting around the edges and having no effect. She's affecting a lot of people. But if she acknowledges that, then there's a lot of guilt and blame to take along with that too. And that's another big feeling that she's pushing down throughout this book. But this guilt, it keeps bubbling up, and there's this sense that every time she's pushing it down, it's just growing and growing inside of her. And we see these moments, these like very vulnerable, exposed moments from this person who's constantly performing, where that guilt pops up. There are a few times in this book where something bad is happening to her, and her first thought is, oh, this is punishment. This is my consequence for what I've done. This is my karmic retribution happening. And I think maybe that might be the root of what has Alex so unsettled. There's this one part where Alex has lied her way into like a college student's house, and they take a picture that's like heavily filtered, and Alex looks at it and thinks, she looked reset, as if the last stretch of her life had not happened, as if you could erase things and start over just like that. Had she ever actually looked that clean and fresh and blameless? Because Alex doesn't feel clean. She certainly doesn't feel blameless. But she is absolutely desperate to erase her past and start over. But she can't erase it. It just keeps coming back. You know, Dom keeps trying to call. She keeps having these overwhelming feelings of fear and guilt. And she's just failing over and over again to reset. So is it even possible? Is a clean slate something she can have? She is better than anyone at forgetting, and it's still not good enough. And while she's running from her guilt, running from being seen as a guilty party, she's accumulating so much more over the course of this week. She's coming into these people's lives like a tornado. And she's so often seduced by, I think the phrase that is used in this book is the logic of a bad idea. It's like she knows these things are bad ideas, but she does them anyways every time. She has this like pathological inability to lay low. You almost kind of start to wonder as the reader if subconsciously she wants to stop running. She wants to be caught because she just keeps doing these things. And she's starting to like expose herself to people who knows Simon and are in his circle, and it just seems like there's no way this isn't all going to get back to him. Like she can't possibly separate all these different parts of herself. And I think as you're reading this, you kind of get this awful feeling a lot earlier than she is ready to acknowledge it, that maybe this is all doomed, that Simon's never gonna take her back. She's not the exception to any rule. She's not this one special person who's gonna be able to jump above her social class. But Alex, she's unraveling. I think she's kind of losing her grasp on reality and is unwilling to even consider what she's going to do if he rejects her, because that's just way too scary. I mean, she just keeps thinking over and over again, oh, this is awful, but if I just survive to the next moment, it'll all go away, it'll all go away. But that's her entire life, and it never seems to be all going away. So it's like, what is your life if that never happens, if it never works out? I don't know, you really feel for her. My experience was that I felt very empathetically towards her. As you know, she can't win with these people. There's no victory in this for her. And you want her to just walk away, just leave all of these terrible people behind her, but she just can't. I don't know, this is definitely one of those books where some readers might have issues with likability, because she does do a lot of bad things. It's like, I'll say it again, likability isn't a very fun way to read books. And I think expanding your empathy for a deeply imperfect narrator makes you a better reader and probably a better person too. But anyways, so we come to the ending. We come to Alex making it to this Labor Day party, and it's all just catching up with her. And we're just like right on the edge of a crash of this huge exposing moment. And that's where the book ends, like right before this moment of breaking. So we don't actually see the conclusion. We don't actually know what that moment looks like, what the consequences are for Alex afterwards. So we're kind of left with the same question that Alex is left with. Everything that's happened, does it count? There's this one part towards the end of the book where she's talking about all of the bad things that are happening that she could forget about. But maybe some things could never be erased. Maybe they tinted some cellular level of your experience. And even if you scraped away whatever part was on the surface, the rot had already gotten beneath. If that was true, if it had all counted, but maybe it didn't. So even there, she's still trying to convince herself that it doesn't count. The things that have happened in her life don't count. They're not real. She doesn't really feel them. She's trying to disconnect from it all. But it does count. She is changed by what has happened to her. And it's affecting how other people see her, and more importantly, how she's seeing herself. And I think she's losing her ability to live within herself and her life and the things that she's done. And I don't think she can forget. Not really. I mean, this is a whole book of trying to forget and failing. This is a book about not forgetting. Okay, so I definitely want to read more from Emma Cline. I thought this book was really compelling and unique in style and subject matter. It was a very quick read. It really pulled you forward through the book. And Alex was so complex and interesting as our main character. There's something definitely kind of addictive about the thrill and the anxiety of this book. Okay, so that's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching.